good morning, and welcome to Daring Dialogues. I am your host today, Shantae Charles. I hope that everybody is having a great and wonderful day. Because we did not get a chance to have our talk back yesterday on the importance and impact of Black owned businesses, we are going to leave some time today to do that, to talk about that. And I want to go ahead and make sure that we put on our security measures for YouTube. There we go. All right, and let's get right into the reading. It is Wednesday, and we said that we're going to be looking at trauma and boundaries, freeing yourself from your past with healthy boundaries, and a few reminders for people with difficult family relationships. But let's start with trauma and boundaries. So, good morning to those of you who are coming in. My name is Shantae Charles, and this is Daring Dialogue Wednesdays. Wednesday, we focus on all things relationship. If you're with us for the first time, and we've been talking about a guide to setting boundaries and a guide to managing unhealthy family relationships. So, let us begin with Set Boundaries, Find Peace, Chapter 8, and let's read today's synopsis. We're not going to be able to dissect it because I do want to get back to part two of, really the talk back from yesterday's talk, and I'll give you all a brief summary if you missed yesterday's talk. Trauma and boundaries. No one wanted her, so she learned to live without needing people. Amber was just 1 month old when she went to live with her paternal grandmother. By age 10, she lived with her father, her grandmother, and paternal aunt, three homes with three different sets of rules. Then, when she was 10 years old, her mother came back into her life. Amber moved in with her mom and stayed there until she was 17. It was hell. Amber's mother had multiple boyfriends who were jerks, and she didn't pay the bills on time, which meant they had to stay with one of the boyfriends from time to time. From ages 10 to 12, Amber was molested by her mother's then alcoholic boyfriend. When she was 15 years old, Amber got into a physical altercation with another of her mother's boyfriends while trying to protect her mom. At 17, Amber moved out on her own. She didn't want to be a burden to anyone, so she decided to take care of herself without asking anyone for anything. She didn't expect anyone to do anything for her anyway. Now at 32, Amber was fully independent and presented as successful. She had earned a Master of Business Administration degree, and she had a career that she loved, mostly because it paid well. Despite her career success, however, Amber's love life was non existent. Whenever she dated, her companions questioned how they could fit into her busy life. Sure, she wanted companionship, but she didn't need people. In relationships, she made this known by creating distance. She never allowed her partners to meet her family, and she wasn't interested in meeting their families either. She couldn't understand why people were so clingy, wanting to talk daily and spend time with her. She abruptly cut people off before a relationship could get too serious. So 3 years ago, she just stopped dating altogether. Amber believed, I think I'm the sort of person who needs to be alone. She created her aloneness by establishing distance, ghosting people, and simply not being open to relationships. Once in a while, Amber spoke to her parents, but not often. She usually spoke to her father only on holidays and birthdays. Her mother was married to a guy who wasn't as bad as the others, and her mother wanted to be close to her daughter. She often called and set up dates with Amber. While she loved her mother, Amber didn't feel that she could trust her. After all, her mom wasn't there for the majority of her childhood, and she couldn't just pretend everything was okay now. Amber had also mastered being a chameleon to accommodate whatever environment she was in. At work, she was a leader and a team player. She knew that pretending to be friendly and appearing to have it all together was necessary for her career success. After 32 years of keeping it all together, however, Amber began to experience an emotional crisis. She found herself crying at work over things that typically wouldn't bother her. She often became irritated during conversations with her mom. Usually she was able to put on a happy face, but lately she was finding herself distracted and consumed with thoughts about her childhood. After her father died, Amber came to see me, the therapist said. She didn't know why she was so upset by his death. It wasn't as if they were close, but she felt outraged. It was as if her childhood trauma was resurfacing all at once. She started thinking about being abandoned by her mother, the abuse she endured, and living with various family members, but never quite feeling at home in any place. Childhood trauma impacts our development as well as our ability to implement and honor boundaries. Trauma in childhood includes anything sexual, physical, or emotional abuse and neglect. Let's look at each area, and we've actually talked about this and covered this in another book that we read called What Happened to You. And that is the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey, or ACEs, as many people have called it. This survey was created to measure the impact of childhood trauma, and there are specifically 10 areas of trauma on it. When I took it, mine was 9 out of 10. So I shouldn't be as well adjusted as I am because my score was 9 out of 10. Yeah. So some of the areas: abuse, neglect, and childhood dysfunction. The ACE accounts for the following areas: abuse, physical, sexual, emotional; neglect, physical, emotional; household dysfunction, mental illness, incarcerated relative, substance abuse, mother treated violently, and divorce, or for some people, they might add in separation. And it's also traumatic to move multiple times. So, out of those categories, I could check off 9 out of 10 of them for the majority of my childhood. And I often tell people, if you do not do the work, if you do not do the inner work, you're going to find yourself like Amber, because Amber starts breaking down in her adulthood because she's got to do that inner work and really discussing and talking about and processing the things that happened to her, which is why I created a course called Soul Freedom for people who need to start beginning the process of processing what happened to them, why it happened, areas of your own life that you need to look at, your own character. That's a part of the process. People with high ACE scores, which is anything over a 4. So if you go through an ACEs survey, and these are also available online for free, if you go through an ACEs survey and you have anything over 4, people with high ACE scores are more prone to health issues, relationship problems, and mental health challenges such as anxiety and depression. Now, thankfully, I do not deal with anxiety. I do not deal with depression. Um, and when it comes to relationships, this July, I will have been married happily and joyfully for 25 years. So I know that the processes that I have um, put together for people to go through, I know that those things work because they're working in my life. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in knowing how can I get a hold of the Soul Freedom curriculum, on YouTube, I will drop the link for it. It is a self-guided course, although I am teaching every segment. But the self-guided course is $99, and it is a 33-day guide. I recommend doing it in 33 days. Some people have said I need more time to process each lesson, so you can extend it. but the goal is really a 30-day, 33-day process. All right. Amber's ACE quiz was an 8 out of 10. On the outside, she seemed to be doing well, but internally, she was sad and lonely. She didn't have any healthy relationships, and her father had just died. All she knew was that she wanted to feel better. She didn't want to be flooded with memories from the past or feel angry about her father's death. When I mentioned boundaries to Amber, she had no clue what they would have to do with the issues in her life. I helped her connect how her current emotional state was attached to her childhood trauma. Slowly, she started to see how she had created rigid boundaries to keep people away. Amber feared emotional connection. She felt weak for feeling sad and embarrassed, and she didn't want others to know about those feelings. Even when her dad died, she told anyone who asked that she was okay. But she wasn't okay. She was suffering in silence. And as a result of burying her emotions, all her feelings were surfacing at once. For many months, Amber was resistant to therapy. She would come for a session, then cancel the next. She hated the idea of needing therapy to help her feel better. One day I mentioned that perhaps she didn't need therapy. Maybe she just needed to feel better, and therapy was part of the process. According to Claudia Black, a renowned addiction author, speaker, and trainer, there are three types of common boundary violations that often occur when trauma is experienced. And we will go over those boundary violations on next time. And we're moving from a guide to managing unhealthy family relationships drama free. We want to give you a few reminders today for people with difficult family relationships. Just a few reminders. Number one, you are not alone. There is no such thing as a perfect family. Number two, you aren't obligated to have relationships with unhealthy people. Ooh wee, that includes online. Yesterday there was a particular person that was trolling and trailing all of my social media posts, and they just kept repeating the same information over and over on my posts that I had already disagreed with them on. And then I had to directly address them and say, you can stop posting the same thing on every one of my posts because you and I disagree. And I hid their comment. So no one else knows that they were the person trolling me on every comment because I hid them. Why? Because I didn't want anybody else to jump into a conversation that was going on between me and this person that was unnecessary. And then they got upset and they accused me of being defensive. I said, I'm not defensive and I don't consider you an enemy. I don't know you. But one thing I do know is you're coming on multiple of my posts saying the same thing, knowing that I've already disagreed with you and expressed why I disagree. That's an unhealthy relationship that you are trying to form with me in my space. So I told them, I said, listen, if you don't agree with what I'm saying, okay, I get it. But you don't have to come announce your disagreement on every post that I put up. And you can also create your own page for how you really feel about these issues. This is free. Right now, they're not charging us for every page we create on social media. They may get to that point because these people are greedy and money hungry. But right now, it's free to create a page. So go ahead and create one, right? You aren't obligated to have relationships with unhealthy people. Number three, you don't have to like every person in your family. Four, you can't create healthy relationships with people who aren't interested in having one with you, no matter how hard you try. There's someone I tried many years, many years to have a healthy relationship with them. I called, I reached out, I wrote, I tried to message, and no response. or maybe a response every 2 or 3 years. That's not a healthy relationship. But you know what I decided last year? I decided to stop trying. I sure did. I'm like, listen, if you don't want to build a relationship with me, I'm good. I love me. I love myself. I love my life. I love my friends. I love my family that chooses to interact with me. And so I'm not lacking in friends, in connections, in meaningful relationships. So if you don't want one with me, that's fine. I'm good. But you can't make people who aren't interested in having a healthy relationship with you be interested. When you speak your truth, you aren't betraying anyone. You are honoring yourself. So many times people hold back from speaking their truth because they feel like they're going to hurt somebody's feelings. No, honor yourself. It is okay to be different from the other people in your family. It really is. Now, I'm thankful that I came from a pretty open family, a very accepting family. We have all kinds of people in our family, and I don't think I've ever experienced anything in my family where anybody was shut out or ostracized or made to feel less. I never witnessed it. If it went on, I never saw it. Okay. And I'm 47. So I think that I come from a blessed family in that we are pretty accepting of each other. Now, if you do something obviously criminal or against children or elderly or something like that, then yes, my family would be like, you're getting put out of the family. But beyond that, we're pretty accepting. And lastly, you can create family relationships with people who aren't related to you. You are not, again, obligated to have relationships with unhealthy people. All right, that is my chop it up reading time for today. We are going to get back to the conversation that we were having on yesterday about Black owned businesses. I've seen some more commentary around and had some more conversations online with people saying that Black businesses asking Black people to purchase their products in stores that are pulling back their DEI efforts, that, why do you want us to be a part of the oppressor? Or why do you still want to be a part of the oppressor? I'm like, do people understand how capitalism works? Do people understand how business works? Do people understand that everyone, if you're in the United States, everyone is practicing capitalism, not just the business owners? This is a capitalist society. It's a mix between capitalism and socialism. So I think it's a little hypocritical to act like you're not a part of the capitalist system because you don't own a business. Everybody in the United States practices and participates in some form of capitalism because that is how our economy is run. You can be anti capitalist in your values all you want to be, but in this system, in this society, in this country, everybody is practicing some form of capitalism. So let's be for real. Hmm. Hmm. And then, secondly, if you want these businesses to be able to move out of these anti DEI stores, the quickest way to help them to be able to do that is to buy them out in those stores so they can move on. I don't know why this is rocket science. Now, again, if you have lots of stores in your area and you don't have to shop at a Target, don't shop at a Target. If Target is your only big box store and Walmart is your only big box store, then go in there and buy Black owned brands. And then the last thing, boycotts aren't the only thing that the civil rights persons did. They did more than boycotts. They did sit ins, they did marches, they did protests, they did civil disobedience. So it was not just boycotts, that made our ancestors successful. And finally, it only takes 3% of us for any boycott to be successful. So, demanding that all 100% of all Black Americans participate the way you want them to participate, or else they're not Black enough, is a whole bunch of foolishness that I'm not going to go for or tolerate. And when I see it coming out of people's mouths, I hit block. You know why? Because you and I are not going to get along, and I don't want you in my space with the foolishness. All right. So now we're going to have some talk back about that whole conversation from yesterday. You can meet us on Instagram right now because that's where we're going to have the conversation and the talk back. I want to thank you for your time and attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be light. Thank you, Dakota the Crazy Guy, for showing up and joining us live. Be well, and most importantly, be right.